the way I learned how to play drums was just listening to music. I guess you can say self-taught. And so I guess I was just able to kind of hear it in my head and then kind of know what to do already on the kit and then be able to kind of work it out and figure it out. And if it's a fill, be able to move, out of whatever I'm playing into that fill and then back out of it, just getting that flow and stuff down.
What's going on, everybody? Bill, James, Helen, Tim. Good to see you, Bob. I'm really excited about this. We've been trying to get Miles on here for a little while now. Since like December, maybe before December.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. For everybody doesn't know, this is Milestone. He and I did a run of shows last year together. We opened up for them. I believe Randy Hauser was out with them, and so we had a good time and got to chat. And anytime I meet cool people, I'm like, hey, you should come talk to these other cool people that I got. So yeah, we started talking about it then. But if you've never been on a live call, or we have a lot of older members that have come back this week, and so if you're just rejoining us, this is fun. Glad to have you back. But these are really laid back, and I always preface these guest artist calls with, I'm trying to do what my 14-year-old self would have been really stoked about, and that was be able to talk to the players that are actually out doing the thing, or that I was reading about in Modern Drummer. And that's why we have these guest artist calls every month, is so that you get to talk to the people, not just like, oh yeah, once I played, but they're just like out there doing it right now. And then next month we have a guest artist who's a doctor, Dr. Azar, and she measures heart rate and BPM and how many calories we burn. So she's going to be talking all about that next month. So be sure to check that out. But yeah, awesome. So some of you, let me preface, Miles, before I let you off the chain, man. Let me preface with, because getting back in and last year starting to play with the Steel Woods, there was a whole section. It's not often that I uncover a whole section of like artists that I just kind of didn't know existed. And I've been doing that the past 8 or 9 months, and it's been a blast. And so every artist that we have opened for that is on a major arena amphitheater tour, I didn't know who they were. And that's kind of an odd thing for me. And so there's so much going on in music out there, and it's spliced in so many different ways that I think it's incredible. And Miles plays with an incredible country artist named Cody Johnson. And Cody, y'all are out of Texas, correct, man?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. And Cody, how long has Cody been doing music?
Man, I mean, he's been singing in church and stuff his whole life. But as far as professionally, I think he really got started around '06 or '07, somewhere around that area.
Yeah. And so to let you know a little bit about Cody Johnson, they regularly sell out shows across the country. They've earned multiple ACM and CMA award nominations, a platinum selling top 10 single, On My Way to You, 2 RIAA gold certified tracks, Nothing on You and With You I Am, and more than 2 billion streams worldwide. And I will tell you, they have a rabid fan base that love Cody and the band, and their show is just incredible. It's incredible. They go out there every night and just slay it. I thoroughly enjoyed getting to go out and watch him do his thing. And so yeah, thanks for coming on here and talking to us, Miles.
Dude, happy to do it. More than happy to do it.
Are y'all on a break? A little bit of a break?
Yeah, actually we are. We got the next few weekends off, and then we got a couple busy weeks in there, and then the very end of July to the end of August, we're going to be in Australia. So,
oh man,
we got we're going on tour with Luke Combs over there. We're essentially going to New Zealand and going to the northeastern part of Australia and just looping all the way around the continent to Perth and then flying back home. So one continent I've always wanted to go to, and that happens to be the first overseas trip we're taking. So
I know, man.
I was going
to say, I'm kind of jealous that you're getting to go to, I mean, I'm not jealous you're going to be gone for a month, but I'm kind of jealous that you get to go to Australia before I do.
Man, plenty of people have beaten me there for sure, but I'm excited for the opportunity.
All right. So I guess since we're kind of starting from ground zero with everybody. And if you have a question, by the way, I really don't love hearing myself talk. You can put it in the chat and Grant will read it, or just Grant will tell you how there's a way you can raise your hand in Zoom. And I still haven't figured it out, but there's a way you can raise your hand. So Miles doesn't bite, and most of the time, and would love to talk to you. So yeah. And before we go in,
Yeah, please.
Cody Johnson is kind of recognized as trying to bring back the roots of country, kind of going back to the country's heyday and the good old days, if you want to. So we're definitely not talking about the newer genre that is bro country that I'm not as big of a fan of, although a lot of people are, and that's totally fine. But
Yeah.
they kind of represent that older country vibe. So how did you get started playing first? Let's start there.
Well, my dad is a vocalist, and when I was born up until probably about high school, he was performing, even doing small tours and stuff like that. So his story, which is still kind of hard for me to believe, is 18 months old in the kitchen with my mom. She's cooking, the radio's on. I have a ballpoint pen, and he walks in and sees me keeping tempo with whatever song was on the radio. So he kind of stopped and was like, drummer. So fast forward to 3 years old, my third birthday, I get to my grandma's house, and there's this big sheet with something under it, pull it off, and it's a drum set. One of those first ones with the cymbal out of the kick drum that I remember always fell because I was hitting them so hard. So, but anyway, so the story just continued from there. I did high school and bands, or high school and junior high band, did solo and ensemble stuff, all the marching. We got into like the winter guard stuff as a small high school, going up against 4, 5, and 6A high schools. We had no reason to be there, but it was such a cool experience. But then I got into college. It's when I really started gigging in, I guess, what you would call the Texas music scene. In high school, I did some more metal and rock stuff and punk rock stuff, and then just been going from there. Graduated college, moved to Austin, and eventually the story led to where I'm at now. So
That's awesome, man. Now, how did you hook up with Cody?
So the band I was in while I was going to Texas A&M got picked up by a booking agent that also picked up Cody. This was back, I think, in like '07 or something like that. So over time, doing showcases with that, booking agents, artists, and just doing shows together. You do a lot of shows together when you're on the same booking agency. We became friends, got to know all the guys in the band and everything like that. And one day I'm sitting on the couch in Austin, and I get this random text saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a drummer. Do you want the gig?" And I was like, "Who's this?" Because I didn't have his number. And he said, "It's Cody." And I was like, and people jaw drop when they hear this. I actually told him no at first, because I was playing with another artist and I had a day job that was letting me go and tour and stuff. So I was content. And as soon as I hit send, I was like, you know what? I am going to regret that. Luckily for me, their drummer over the next couple weeks couldn't make the couple Wednesday gigs that they had. So he texted me, "Hey, could you at least fill in the next couple Wednesdays?" "Yeah, I got you, dude. No problem." Have a day and a half to learn the material, somehow get on stage in his hometown. So there's like 900 people there. I've never played for 900 people on a headlining set. And so I kind of go, all right, let's go. And I think a song or two in, we all kind of stopped and looked at each other, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, no, this is happening. So after the show, pulled Cody aside and I was like, can I please take back my no and say yes? And here we are today.
That's awesome. Now he was in rodeo before he was in music. Is that correct, or did I get that story wrong?
No, he wasn't doing, NFR or nothing professional by any means, but he was out on the road trying to make a living doing rodeo at one point in time.
Yeah,
For
which was
sure.
one of the interesting things about going out with them, because there's a practice steer or bull that they bring out with them, and Cody would
Yeah,
take
the
it out
roping
and be
dummy.
and would be out there
Yeah.
roping in whatever city we were in. Which
Yeah. I can't do it. I've tried. I can't do it. I just give up.
Well, I can't either. So I think if I had to be a farmer, I'd probably be like, well, I may die. Um,
Right.
so, so how has the gig evolved as you've been on it? How has, from when you started to obviously in front of 900 people in the hometown, how have you all grown that? Because right now it's massive. What y'all
Yeah.
do and what y'all do on stage is pretty incredible.
Well, I mean, when I first started, it was, 12 passenger van in a trailer and, an average crowd size, depending on where you are, the more popular spots in Texas, you're going to have 3, 4, 500 people at the shows. But, all the other stuff out of state and stuff, there may be maybe a couple hundred people,
Hmm.
something like that. And then we've just been hitting the road and going and going. And we just, everywhere we went, the crowds just got a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And it kept going and kept going and kept going. It's just been this rocket ship that really hasn't changed its trajectory or anything yet, And um,
Now,
Cody's
why
always
do you
had
why do you
this.
think that why do you think that is? What contributed to that? Because I know several of our members are in bands, and like, what do you think helped contribute to those crowds growing every time you came back?
Well, for the show, obviously the songs need to be good, and somehow Cody writes and cuts songs that just truly relate to people. So there's that connection. But during the show, it's funny you asked this because I was about to say this. Cody's always had this role or this mentality that it's a 30 or 30,000 people. So it doesn't matter if we're playing at a bar that is just the bar staff, or you can go see us at the Houston Rodeo where there's over 70,000 people. You're gonna get the same show. We're
Hmm.
not going to do anything different. We're not going to act any different. It's the same thing. No, so no matter what, you're gonna do the show the best of your ability, regardless of what's going on out in the crowd. And also on top of that, Cody is a fantastic leader. He always has that kind of mentality, and it's kind of the hey, you know what? Monitors don't work. Get on the bull. Hang on. Let's go. We got a
Hmm.
show to do. It doesn't matter. Like, there's nothing that's going to stop him from putting on that show,
Hmm.
unless he's just so ill. You know what I mean? But stuff not working, anything like that, it's kind of like, well, saddle up.
Yeah, and this, it's funny because it really is just a one show at a time, one person at a time game when it comes,
Mhm.
even when you're scaling to, 10, 15,000 people that you're playing in front of, it's like each one of those are still individual people, and you got to find a way to try to touch each one. And it was funny because I would watch Cody and he would come back and do multiple encores, and then he would stay on stage and sign like anything that anybody had down front that he could get to within a given amount of time. Anything. It didn't matter. I mean, he was signing the most random stuff. But he just, I mean, his energy was, I don't know how the guy keeps weight on himself. It's just incredible what he does.
Yeah, he's moving, and back to what we talked about before, like the emotion and stuff like that, in which I'm sure we'll get into. But I don't want to be the boring guy on stage, and I have to keep up with that guy. So, the shows they're pretty tiring after a while.
Yeah, and so we talked about this while I was out with you all. This is one of my favorite things is getting to hang out with some of the other drummers that we go out with. And there was one night Miles and I were talking, and it's funny because we had two completely different stances. I'd been watching him play, and I'm like, man, that is such an up show. He gets to play all the notes. He's just like all over it. He's, it's super high energy the whole time. And then he came up. He's like, man, I've been watching y'all, and I'm thinking, man, I need to put more dynamics and touch, and bring it up and down. So, and I'm thinking, we were both watching each other's gig, being like, oh, I wish I could do a little bit more of that. It's like, it's kind of funny how
Yeah,
the shoes, it's always greener on the other side. Um,
right.
so you do get to, your show is super high energy,
Mhm.
and you do get to play a lot, tastefully, obviously. So, what's your kind of approach to a live show when you're going out there? What's in your head? What do you want to happen? What are your goals?
Well, really just trying, like I think, like kind of like we were talking before. You want to try to get that one person, at least one person, So see you and go, holy cow! Kind of like Dave Grohl said in that one interview or meme or whatever it was I saw. It was like, I'm trying to grab that one person's attention and make them go, holy cow, that person or that drummer is having the time of his life. Look
Mhm.
at him up there. Wow, it is so much fun to watch him play. Not trying to take away from any of the other guys or anything like that, or as the band or the show as a whole. But as I said, I don't want to be the boring guy on stage, just kind of sitting back and just, yeah, this is fun. No, like trying to match everyone else's energy and get everyone to go, man, I guess really the goal is that entire band had the time of their lives, and I want to come back and watch them. And I'm going to bring six or however many more of my friends that I can.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the mindset. Obviously you have your warm ups and your stretches and kind of the routine you have and everything like that that gets you settled in. But you're going up. It's like, and going back to the 30 and 30,000 rule. It's like it doesn't matter how many people are out there. We're going to go out and put on the same show because these people deserve to see the same show as everyone else got to see.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Now, what gear are you running? And I know we got some questions coming in, and I see your hand, Bill. We'll get to everybody. Just 1 second. What gear are you running? I know you got a new kit in this year, didn't you?
No, it was the beginning of last year,
Beginning
but
of
I
last year.
am,
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah. So I play Pearl drums, Zildjian cymbals, ProMark drumsticks, Evans drum heads. I use some big fat snare drum stuff, and I use a product called Cymbals. And if no one knows what that is, we can get into that at some point because that's kind of a fun little thing for your cymbals.
Is that the one where they spin? What is
Yeah,
cymbal?
it's yours. Yeah, so it's just a device that has a felt, one felt on it, and you screw it on into and you can kind of adjust the tension on it, but it stays on your cymbals. So you just take the felt and wing nut off of your cymbal stand. You just pop it right on, and then whenever you're done, you just take it right off. And it makes it easy and loaded and load out. But it also really, I was actually surprised by this, but it actually really opens up your cymbals. It made mine a little louder and sustain a little bit longer because there's no compression between the felts. It's open on top, so it's
Yeah.
able to actually breathe a little more. So
Yeah. Yeah. I just cracked a cymbal, which I haven't done in like 10 years. And it was that big 22-inch ride I was using a ride as a crash. So let's preface this with saying I probably I had it coming. Okay. But
I get it. I
one
get
night
it.
it was like, how you get used to the swing of your cymbal on certain songs and you kind of get into a movement. And there was two
Yep.
shows where, man, it was off. And I could not get, it was just, wow. I'm like, what's the matter with this thing, man? And I don't know if it got, anyway, I think it got tightened too
Yeah.
much. And I think it was choked down and got cracked from that. But,
Gotcha.
I fixed it now. Yeah. Okay. So you're running Pearl drums. What's the color of them? What's the color of the new kit?
It's white marine pearl, and it is a Music City custom Masters Maple Reserve.
Oh, nice. Nice. That's a very nice kit. I like it. And I like the little tip, letting them ring a little bit more. That's pretty cool. I was just looking at my top
Yeah.
tom. I've got it mounted in a snare basket. The one I use on the road, and I think it's choking that tom out, man. I know some people swear by them, but this tom right here too, it was choked out and we couldn't figure out why. And then we hung it and it sings, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, any little bit. I know they sell those little foam things that can go on like the basket, and then that way you can still secure it, but it's not squeezing the drum at all. But yeah, I think anything you put on the drum like that that's gonna restrict the shell from vibrating is, it's gonna reduce the sustain a little bit, I believe.
I think so too. And it was the same with we got a drum set we call Lil Pink out front. And it was the same. I know it's like the hip thing to do, but I don't know. I think really good tone is the hip thing. And so I think I'm going to go back to, anyway, that's the discussion I'm having with myself.
I'm all about suspension for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So we got some questions, man, and that'll probably lead us down some rabbit holes. I know Bill's had his hand up, and then we've got some submitted. So let's get to Bill first, and then let's get to everybody else.
Sure.
Hey,
Bill, what's
Miles.
up, man? How are you?
Hey, Bill, how's it going?
All right. Thanks for doing this. It's cool to get to talk to the people who are out there live, the pros, living the dream that we're
Oh
all
yeah,
back
no
here.
problem.
We're dreaming that we're doing. I'm going to jump right into the weeds here. One of my questions I always ask during these is, and I'm curious about is, what is your practice session like when you're not like on tour or you're working something special? But how do you, when you're like, it's, you're in between projects or something and you're just going down in your basement, your studio, wherever, what's the kind of things that you do, your practice routine, like things that you work on, kind of thing?
Well, when I do that, a lot of it is going to be fills and stuff that I've seen, and a lot of the times I work that out like during sound check. Like I hear this song and I hear this really cool drum fill, and I try to kind of figure it out in my head, and then I'll take it to a kit when I can. Obviously, the practicing at home's kind of off right now because I do have two young kids, and and one of them is about 19 months old, so time is pretty scarce right now. But if I was doing that more, the way I learned how to play drums was just listening to music. I guess you can say self-taught. And so I guess I was just able to kind of hear it in my head and then kind of know what to do already on the kit and then be able to kind of work it out and figure it out. And if it's a fill, be able to move, out of whatever I'm playing into that fill and then back out of it, just getting that flow and stuff down. But I find those really cool drum fills and things like that nowadays that I want to try to incorporate in my live playing or whenever I'm doing some kind of session work and stuff like that.
So let me. How many days a year are you all out?
Right now we're at about 65 shows. So the days, on the road are a little bit more, but I think at our highest, we were hitting about 150, 160 a
Yeah,
year, something like
yeah,
that. And
yeah.
gone a lot because of being based out of Texas. If you go a little too far west, north, or east, you're kind of stuck out because it didn't make any sense to come back home. So we were gone a lot more than 150 or 60 days. I'll say that.
Yeah, a lot of you, if you've never done extensive traveling, it's like we just did almost a 3-week run. I got back Sunday, and when you go that far out and it's like a day to get home, it doesn't make sense if you have 4 days off to come home and then pay the bus driver to then take you back out there another 24
Mhm.
hours. It's 2 of your days. It costs way more, and you lose 2 days anyway. Everybody's like, let's just stay out here and finish it and go home.
Yep.
So yeah, that's kind of what he's talking about. Now I wanted to, before you go on, Bill, I wanted to kind of bring something out, Miles, because I have a lot of talk with students about this. I got to meet 7 or 8 of you on this last run, by the way. 3 people came out in Seattle. It was really fantastic. I had a blast.
Nice.
And I was talking to a lot of them about this, and that is playing to music, how you learn the music and that kind of a thing, because now it's very popular. There's all kinds of software and stuff that'll, have the ball bounce with the music and, but I'm getting a lot of players that can't play the song without the music, or they feel they've learned it incorrectly if they're not playing every note on the music. So when you learn a song, are you learning a song by ear? Or are you using sheet music? What are you doing?
No, it's by ear.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally how I learned how to play. Just starting from age 3, or I'm sorry, I think my dad mentioned the first song he really saw me try to play was around age 5. And so
Yeah.
that's just how I did it. I picked up guitar in college too, and I did the same thing. Looked at some tabs, or the chords, tried not to do anything crazy like that, but I just kind of taught myself how to play.
Yeah. And I was having lunch with the student a couple, last Friday, and he was saying I can learn it so much faster when I just look at the sheet music, but then I have trouble getting away from the sheet music. And I was encouraging him. I said, yeah, you need to learn the songs away from the sheet music, because at first it takes longer because you're trying to teach yourself how to listen and get your ear better. I said, but down the road, you're going to be able to take a song, listen to it a couple times and play it because you've developed your ear. So in the short term, it takes a little bit longer, but in the longer term, you're developing so many musical muscles by sitting there and listening 18 times to the intro to try to figure out what they're doing, which is the only way we used to have to learn music was, I'm just going to listen to it a billion times until
Yeah, and if I could add to that real quick, you come to find out, like you said, after you train your ear and you get those muscles and things going, especially when you're playing country music, you learn that the song is kind of grouped. Like there's choruses, there's verses, there's a bridge,
Mm.
and country is a little more consistent than other stuff when you get into like metal and rock and stuff like that. Usually the kick pattern's almost exactly the same as the second verse and the third verse or whatever. So once you kind of narrow down how those sound and how those go, then you can kind of pick out there's a stop here, this bridge has a build up, or there's a diamond over here. And so eventually it just becomes okay, choruses are like this, verses are like this. And then by that point, you have 3/4 of the song down.
Yeah,
And then you train that way. And then eventually you get it, like you said.
that's what we talked about. It is the musical form becomes really, really apparent to you, and you begin to start. You hear a 12-bar blues, and when you hear it turn around, you go, "Oh, it's a blues." Got it. There's no more question about the form of the song because you realize, oh, it's a 12-bar blues, and your brain automatically catalogs it as like, we know what this does.
Yep.
And it's hard to tell that when you're looking at the sheet music because you're reading so linearly. It's similar to looking at a map versus memorizing the directions. When I look at maps, I don't remember where the place was. The thing just told me to turn at the place, and that's what I did, and I wound up there. But when I have to memorize them, it's like, okay, well, if I don't memorize these, I'm not getting there. You learn the surrounding geography much quicker.
Yeah, that's a very, very good way to put it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, okay, Bill, sorry, I didn't mean to hijack your question.
No, actually, that's interesting because I have found that, I'm in a little cover band that, we play out once every month or so. And in fact, we have a gig coming up here in a couple of weeks. I used to focus so much on like learning techniques and doing exercises and drills that I wasn't learning the song. So I still try to spend the beginning of practice working on techniques I know I need to improve on. But then I'll switch to the majority. It's just, I'll get my phone out, I'll have this playlist, and I'll just almost put it on shuffle. And then whatever song, so that basically focusing on those songs. And a lot of these call-ins, I think have helped me realize that I don't have to play it exactly like it sounds on the record. I had a hard time dealing with that. I'm getting a lot better now at, like you said, here's the groove in the verse, here's the groove in the chorus. Okay, so he may switch it up a little bit in the second chorus. I don't care. I'm going to do it the same way. And then here, a couple fills come in here. I don't have to do it exactly like he does it, unless it's something really iconic. But I am trying to focus more on learning the damn song and coming up with an arrangement that I can play and that I can remember, because it seems like it's a whole lot easier when you go out there if I know what I'm going to play, as opposed to getting out there and I think I know this, and
I think that could lead to overthinking. Like there's nothing wrong with getting to the nitpicky stuff of it and the techniques and making sure every note is right and everything like that. But if you're at a point and you get to the gig and you kind of start to freak out, like, I don't know, how does this go? How does this go? How does this go? It's like, excuse me. I just think that can lead to overthinking when there's that much information in one thing. But like you said, if you're just like, you know what, let's just listen to the song. Okay, that's how it goes. Got it. And then you're good to go. You know how it goes. You feel it.
Yeah, and it's like you can make it, the expression, make it your own kind of thing, where here's the basic groove. It's faithful to the song, but it's something that I can play and remember to play and have fun with it. So so it's interesting. Sounds kind of like how you learn, what you say, a lot of music oriented in your practice, learning things that you hear and apply that to your own playing.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead, man.
Cool. I'm cool. Okay. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean, I was gonna say, like getting into the rudiments and all those things like that. And obviously, I'm not saying I don't need to practice those. I still do when I do warm-ups and stuff like that. But I got to do all those rudiments and all those things whenever I was in high school. So that it goes back a long time. But I've known those rudiments for so long now. It just kind of naturally got incorporated into the drum set whenever I do use them. But like I said, don't overthink anything. Work on your techniques and stuff. But when it comes to your show and those songs, just worry about what that song is trying to do, and then that's it. Less is more a lot of the times.
Yeah, and Bill brought up a real good point. Trying to learn the song, verbatim every time. I occasionally will do that, actually, just to strengthen that muscle of making sure I can replicate what I'm hearing exactly. But I oftentimes will pick like a Rush song or some song that's just got way too many notes in it, and I'm like, okay, I want to play that song perfectly. Tom's probably, I'm going to play that song perfectly, every note. And when we play it live, I'm playing it just like the recording, so somebody can come up and be like, you played it just like the recording. I'll be like, you caught it, didn't you? But every song can't be like that, Most of them, it's just like, let's get it learned. Let's go up there and then let's play some music.
Exactly like that meme that's been going out for a long time. They have the cartoon drawings of one person that's just laying down the beat and says, "You're hired," and then the other one has all these notes. He's like, "That's cool."
I've seen that very, very comic strip. Seen that. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dave King, we've had him on here as a guest artist. If you want to go watch his call, anybody, he's an incredible drummer, plays with the Bad Plus, and he taught Steve Gould, who wound up playing with Sarah Bareilles and Owl City and Ben Rector and tons of other fantastic player. We've had Steve as a guest artist too, and Dave told Steve when he was teaching him, he sat him down and he said, "Look, we're going to go through all these method books and we're going to learn all this drum nerdery. And then we're going to have a session where you come in and we're going to burn all the books and you're not going to look at the books anymore. And we're going to play music and we're going to focus on you as a musician. But first, let's eat some vegetables and then we'll burn them later." Right. And I've always thought, cool. Man, that's a great way to look at it. It's like, you got to know when to go away from it. All right, Grant, I know we got some submitted questions too. If you got a question, you can submit it, or you can just in the chat, or you can just raise your hand and we'll just kind of get to you. I love it when you all talk. So what do we got, Grant?
Absolutely. Hit me up.
Yeah. James had a question. He messaged me. So James, feel free to unmute yourself and then you're live.
Sounds good. Hey, Miles.
Hey, James. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just trying to keep cool.
Good deal. Question I had is, who writes the drum parts? Do you write the drum parts for the songs?
So, no. Whenever Cody goes in and records an album, it's mostly Nashville musicians that are doing it. Although the last few albums, I guess this is the third one we've done where we've got on a few songs there. And those parts, for the most part, I mean, there's kind of a general idea because these are songs that are getting cut. It's not really a song that Cody wrote necessarily, so I'm not really coming up with it. But when you get the demo to listen to in Nashville, they usually have drums to it, so you're kind of playing that kind of thing, but you have the freedom to kind of make it whatever you want to. So any of those little touches on it, yes. And if there's a couple songs we recorded that are cover songs that I wrote the drum parts on. Because the songs are completely different from the originals, and that wasn't a song that was demoed and given to Cody to cut. That's something we actually did.
Gotcha. The song "Guilty as Can Be," I think you're playing quarter notes on the hats, but you're playing the upbeats, not the downbeat. Am I right about that?
Well, actually, that song wasn't me. And I believe that song came out before I even joined the band. That's an old one. But that one, at least.
But you play it live too, though, right?
Yeah, we used to. But whenever I'm playing that live, I think I'm hitting everything on the hats on the upbeat, on the amps.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And that's why I was asking the question, because for me, it's always been a struggle because you think in downbeat terms. And I think on that song, I think when you play it live, it's quarter notes on the ands. And I watch the video of you playing that song live, and I've seen Steven play the upbeats, and it's like you guys do it effortlessly. Is there any, have you always been able to do that effortlessly? Is there some trick to playing on the upbeats that you use?
I don't think I've ever always been able to do it effortlessly per se, because I do kind of remember trying to tighten that up But especially something like that, I think the key to it is just like learning anything else on drums is to take it slow first and build your way up. Even if it's boring and repetitive, the slower you do it, kind of like building that the house foundation, but starting slow to a metronome or whatever you're comfortable with, and just really working your way up, because once you get it to where you can kind of look and read a book while you're doing it, that muscle memory is there and you'll kind of never forget it.
Gotcha.
So that's how I would approach it.
Great. I appreciate the music you guys do. Sometimes I'll have a country station on and I'll double take because that's not country music I'm hearing. But when it's a Cody Johnson song, you can count on it being country. And I love that.
Oh, well, we appreciate that very much. We're glad we can do that.
Yeah. And thank you for doing this.
Oh, no problem at all. Happy to do it.
Thank you.
So that's a good question and point, James. I appreciate you bringing that up because a lot of people ask about that, and there's a lot of discussions we have around that. Sometimes it's having to do with the E's and the U's, which are the upbeats of 16th notes, or the ands, which are the upbeats of the downbeats. Anybody that doesn't know what those terms mean, a downbeat is going to be the pulse of the song. It's going to be where the quarter notes are. Bop, 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 bop. But the upbeats are going to be the opposite of that. So for how much space there is, and when you play that note, there's an equal amount of space that we don't play, and that's the upbeat, that space. And oftentimes I find we have trouble playing those things that we're not accustomed to hearing. And in the Western world, upbeats are not popular. You go to some other parts of the world and the upbeat is kind of a given. It's more like the downbeat in their music. An example would be reggae. Reggae music, the upbeat, their groove, the one drop, you don't play the reason it's called the one drop is you drop the one. You don't play the one. Like there's no downbeat. You kind of dance around that. Ska would be another one that's very upbeat oriented. In the 70s, disco was both upbeat and downbeat oriented because you had that 4 on the floor driving kick drum, but then you also had the happening on the hi-hats.
Boots and cats.
Cats and boots, that's right. So for me, the first thing has always been listen to music that's doing that. And if you're into country music that does that or pop music that does that, find a bunch of those songs that focus on the upbeat and make yourself a Spotify playlist. I do Spotify playlists for everything. I actually have a Spotify playlist for Kelly that I fill out on the road. I'm a big mixtape person from like way back. High Fidelity is like one of my favorite movies of all time. And I spend way too much time trying to stress about like, man, I don't know if that should go on this playlist, even though nobody will ever see the playlist but me. So make yourself a Spotify playlist where it's upbeat oriented music. So in your practice time, you go to that playlist and it's immediate boom. All right, I'm going to learn these songs in addition to working on these exercises, kind of like Miles was talking about, slow it down, focus on these upbeat exercises, but also let's get our ear accustomed to hearing the upbeats. There was a session I did last year, and I knew I was going to have to play this very high tempo drum and bass type of a thing. The drum and bass groove was not the problem. It was actually the tempo. I didn't play at 160, 170 all the time. And my brain wasn't hearing that fast. I spent 2 weeks working at that tempo. And how I started was I played eighth notes at 160 BPM. And I'm like, all right, is that solid? Then I'd try to add the backbeat, maybe one inner beat. And over 2 weeks, I built up to where when I did the session, it was no problem. I was so comfortable at that BPM. There was no problem. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up, James. That's a very good talking point there.
Oh yeah.
What else we got, Grant?
Yeah, we got a question from Pat in the chat. Pat in the chat. There we go. How about that?
I like it. Rhymes all the time. See? Come on.
All right. I'm sorry about that, guys. He asked, why did you choose Pearl?
Oh man. So why did I choose Pearl? Well, Pearl has kind of been around my whole life. The first real good drum set I got was a Pearl Export series back in junior high. I actually still have that kit. It's in my son's room right now. And kind of got away from it for a while. Once I started really touring and stuff like that, I was really trying to get deals and things like that with these companies and stuff. And, reached out to Pearl a few times. Nothing happened. Always just kind of wanted to go there. And now I'm with them and really got to experience a lot of the other stuff that they make that I really haven't been able to mess with in prior years and stuff. And I think they have a iconic sound. They make a very good roadworthy product, might I add. I cannot believe how much my drums actually stay in tune on the road. But they make some good stuff. And the people that I've talked to from there, they've treated me very well. They're, kind of like open, welcome me with open arms. And so it's been a great experience with them. And it's just hard to beat the quality of product that they make.
Yeah, man, my first teacher played a Pearl Masters, and I remember I still play the same sticks he played. I still play the same cymbals he played, which is kind of funny. And I remember going in because I was like, he would turn around to write something down, and I'd be like looking at the underside of the cymbal to try to be like, oh, what's that? What's that cymbal? It must be really good since he's playing it. It was the same with the Pearls. He was playing a Pearl Masters, and that was kind of like what I always wanted. So when I get to college, Dr. John Wooten was selling his Yamaha recording customs, the 80s ones. They were cherry apple red. It was very 80s, 90s drum set. And so I bought that, and he was selling that because he had just signed with Pearl. And I was really excited when I went in for my lesson because he was going to have a Pearl Masters and I was going to get to play on it. I go in there and he ordered plum purple, which I know Sarah's on the call, and Sarah, I don't want to offend you. I know that you love purple and you just bought a purple snare drum, but I just was like, man, there was out of the whole catalog, that was the color, but he loves it, man. He loves that bright purple drum set. That's awesome. They've been good they're out of Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've been good to work with, huh?
Yeah, they've been great, and it's convenient that their U.S. headquarters are in Nashville because, I don't live there, but we stop through a good handful of times a year, so I'm there quite often. So I'm able to go and say what's up to all of them.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to something you mentioned earlier because some of you may not understand how that works. So some people don't understand why I'm not on the Steel Woods recordings as well.
Oh yeah.
And so it's a discussion that's good to have. So especially in Nashville, and in the country music and CCM market, so the contemporary Christian music market, this would be the same type of thing. A lot of times you're not going to have the road guys that are ladies on the album. They're the road team, and then they have a session player team. Part of that, as I've matured, and part of that is because when you have a crew that's been on the road, they usually don't break in touring to do this big dramatic recording. Usually the artist is going in and kind of recording those in their in-between shows. They get tired. The crew is really tired. Like when they come in from a 3 or 4 week run, they want to be home. They don't necessarily want to turn around and go into the studio. Maybe you want to, but you also want to see your family. So part of that is there, but part of that is there's a whole crew of professionals that's all they do. They cut albums, and they do a day in, day out. Live playing is different than playing in the studio. My playing is from 8 months ago when I was just playing in studios. My playing is completely different now when you come see me at a live show. I'm still Steven, but the way I'm approaching it, kind of like Miles was talking about, the energy that we have to put forth. I bleed a lot on stage, and that's just kind of how it is. It's always been that way, by the way, when I play live. Which, if anybody's wondering, gaff tape is a great Band-Aid. I don't think it's probably healthy for you, but it's just a fine Band-Aid.
Man, you could put super glue on a cut. Gaff tape can't be that much worse.
I wasn't going to bring the super glue up, but now that you have, super glue will close it up.
If you don't have new skin, super glue.
Yep. When we were in New Orleans, that's what we used to do. The bass player, he had auditioned for the gig. He'd spent so much time practicing that the tips of his fingers had all fallen off, as far as they were just raw. And so he, every night before the gig, would coat his fingers in super glue, just so he could, it was before Liquid Skin came out. So So that playing, the way you play is different. So a lot of times the road the road players won't be on the album. Sometimes the artist will write the song, sometimes they will get one from a songwriter, and sometimes they'll do a song cover. And those are all three different ways to get a song. By the time they record a song in Nashville, many times it's gone through several demo phases. Sometimes it's a very rough demo. It's just the songwriter's demo to pitch it to songwriting companies that then will pitch it to artists. So by the time you receive that master version, it's probably gone through 2 or 3 iterations of other session players playing on the song just so they could get others to hear it. That's what I used to do.
A lot of the times those recordings sound mastered and ready for, to be put on an album too.
Yep, they sound incredible. And many times if you go hear a songwriter play the song that they wrote for an artist, it is completely different and sometimes way better. It just depends. It just, I got to hear the House That Built Me, or the house that Miranda Lambert did that song?
Yep.
Yeah. I got to hear the songwriter that wrote that one. I got to hear a songwriter's round with him, and it was, bro, I was like on the floor crying. I'm like, God, I'm so pitiful. But I was like, this man, when he delivered it, it was something about it, bro. It was just kind of coming from his gut. So, but yeah, that's what, when I first moved to town, I did a lot of those demo sessions. It's like, if you're making $30 a song, we have 4 hours. However many songs we can record is how much you get paid. If you want to learn how to learn music real quick, it's like, honey, I only got through 3 songs. She's going to be like, you better go in there and learn.
You better find
Baby,
another 4-hour block to join.
Exactly.
Awesome.
All right. So what kind of music do you listen to for inspiration?
Oh, I am a metalhead.
Are you? All right. Which bands?
You're talking like, let's see, Wage War, Architects, Alpha Wolf. A lot of these are, Parkway Drive, Motionless in White, Slipknot, Korn, a lot of that stuff. And I don't know why I'm such a metalhead. It's, I guess, growing up the son of a vocalist, I will say I do like all types of music. I know it's kind of stereotypical or whatever, but I really do, because growing up the son of a vocalist, I listened to any music that had good vocals. So Ella Fitzgerald, listening to stuff, Miles Davis, Steely Dan, all the way up to Motley Crue and Led Zeppelin and Def Leppard and, things like that. But for some reason, the metal has always stuck. And so I'm kind of buried in that right now. So a lot of the feels and things I'm listening to is coming from, the metal scene. I do, going on a little bit of a tangent, I guess, I do like listening to older country music and old jazz stuff, even though jazz is just its own world, but just kind of hearing some of the things that they're doing in these different grooves and these different feels, because it's such a different area of music. But, listening to older country, listening to how those drums were played back then. I don't know if any of you saw, we had a, what was it? The ACMs were just on, and we played Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. And our production manager came up, he goes, hey, do you want the whole kit? Because for backline, they bring in drums for me to use from backline companies. And I was like, no, I don't want the whole kit, because it's a Willie Nelson song. And at most, I'm going to have kick, snare, hat, crash, and floor tom. And that's all I played. But I like going and listening to how that stuff was played back then. So when we get to those situations where you're going to play a Willie Nelson song on TV, I go back to those like, hey, simple. Like you're not just even really moving out of the pocket at all. You're just keeping the beat, and that's it. Try to make it as Willie as I could, I guess.
Yeah, so you just brought up something funny, because Kelly and I are in the middle of the Ken Burns documentary. It's really long, so they've been hearing me say we're in the middle of it for a while. And so we're in the middle of the 2nd episode, and they were just talking about Bill somebody in his Texas Playboys. I forget what his name was.
Monroe?
Bill Monroe is Texas Playboys. So the reason I bring that up is you talking about jazz is so different from country. And they were because at that time swing had become the big thing, Benny Goodman, all that stuff. And so you had a form, you had soloists. And so he was the first to bring in that rhythm section feel of a driving drummer. into country music, because up until then you had like who did Carter, the Carter family, and several others, that it was just very string instrument oriented. And you'll still go to some country festivals that we just played one a couple weeks. We were the only band that had a drum set. Trampled by Turtles played after us, I think. And so, we went on and just scorched the earth with volume, and then back to the string bands. I was like, I don't know who booked this, but I feel bad for these people down front.
Oh man, that's great.
It was, it was really kind of like, and now for something completely different.
Yeah.
But it was funny because he was the first to bring that in, and then it was the first time you started seeing instrumentalists, and he would even on his recordings say, "Get it, Dave," or whatever, and they weren't allowed to do that. And he was just like Satchmo and those other guys were calling to their players in the recording. He was doing the same thing, and he was getting it from the blues and the jazz. And it was a crossover in Texas of country music taking the rhythm section vibe, having a form, and then having sections where certain instrumentalists went out and started soloing. And that was a new thing. They didn't do that, but they were mingling. And it was actually kind of controversial because at that time, race was a huge deal, 20s, 30s, 40s. And he would, in a very, in a state that used to have a ton of slavery in the South, Texas, he was using blues, gospel song forms, all that stuff in these honky tonks, So it was interesting you bring that up, because there's actually, more crossover than I guess I care to think about. I'm like, wow, I never actually thought that was a crossover. And then they had
I didn't even know that. That's cool.
Yeah, they have one of the Marsalises on there, and he was talking about it, and he's just a jazz head. And I'm like, man, he studied about like country music and how, it influenced jazz and how jazz influenced country. Anyway, it's kind of a cool crossover. Which brings me to a question somebody submitted earlier. Bob's asked, are you named after Miles Davis? Where'd the name Miles come from?
No, that'd be a much cooler story. No, actually, no, story's pretty cool. My mom, I guess, my mom fell in love with some kid on a movie named Miles, and that's what she wanted to name me. And I don't know what movie it was. I couldn't remember. But the funny thing about it is, with my first and last name kind of being a vocabulary word, they didn't realize they named me Milestone until about a week after I was born. So it was nothing on purpose. So they're like, did your parents do it on purpose? I'm like, no.
Yeah, which Milestone is actually I think that's a Miles Davis album as well. I think he had one called Milestones. I could be wrong, but I think I remember. Anyway, that's a random question. Pat, you said, so a little preface there. Pat has a win. We always get on the calls, and I'm big on people celebrating daily wins, because I think that's what limps us to the next big win, is just kind of a accumulation of those small wins. So Pat, what you got, man?
Well, after extensive consultation with some of the experts that I know, I made the decision to get the Vic Firth headphones, and I love them except for one thing.
What's that?
It feels like I put my head in a vice when I wear them for about a half an hour. So
we have like 8 pairs of these at the studio. They're fantastic. If anybody wants headphones, Grant's got some right there. I will say they should stretch out a little bit more the more you wear them.
I looked at some comments from people had for them, and a few of them expressed the same thing. He said, they're great, but man, they're really tight.
Yeah, it's crimping your pimples. I can imagine. Yeah.
I will say, I'm with Vic Firth. I love them. I know you're with ProMark. We won't fight on this call, Miles, I promise.
Sure.
But I will say, they made a new one they were real excited about. They're the red ones, and they're Bluetooth. And they got really excited, and they said, we got to send you some. And they sent them to me. And I felt like I was telling somebody their baby was ugly, because I was like, yeah, I don't like them. I hate them. The reason I hate them is because whatever they did with Bluetooth in there, it doesn't seal the same as these. So it sounds way different and you don't get near the compression that you used to have. So if you're looking at getting the Bluetooth that also has a wired component, or getting the non-Bluetooth, the black ones, Bluetooth or red ones, I don't know why they didn't make them blue, but anyway, that's a personal thing. They're vastly different when it comes to how they sound while you have them on, as far as the amount of drums they let in and the compression they put on them. And I don't know why, but anyway, my 2 cents.
I was a little shocked when I first used them, because what I was using before, they weren't noise canceling, and I could barely hear my own drumming, through the music. So, but I've adjusted to it, so I'm okay with it now. So
good.
Yeah, I love them though.
If you don't have the cash to go grab some of those, they're about $75, $80, I think. Well worth. They're one of the things that I would suggest investing in, especially protecting your hearing. My uncle's a ballistics engineer, and when I first started playing the drums, he brought me some shooting earmuffs, and he said, "Hey, whatever you do, wear these." And they're great because they add compression to the snare drum and the drums, and they sound like $1 million in whatever room you're in. But if you're using like some wired headphones or Bluetooth headphones, you can put those on over those, and you get the same sound isolation while still being able to hear your music. So that's the poor man's version of that. So, all right, cool. So into metal, which I think is you're this who was it? Co Wetzel's drummer.
Jared.
Yeah, he wasn't he in a metal band?
Yeah, he was in Fit for a King.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, and it kind of that makes your playing, for some reason, it brings it together a little for me. Not that it was not together before. I'm just saying it kind of like makes a couple of things. I'm like, oh, that's why he has those leanings. Okay.
Yeah.
I dig it. Now, what about family life, and how do you balance that with gigs and being on the road? Because you got a couple little ones, huh?
Yeah, I got Noah. My son he just turned 5 May 29th. And then Riley, I think I mentioned, is about 19 months or so. He was actually born 6 weeks early, and it was on my birthday.
Really?
And to add to that, which I make the joke, my birthday's pink from now on, which is totally fine. Don't worry about me anymore. But if she was born about 6 or 7 minutes later than she was, we would have been born on the same minute, 35 years later. Yeah, she was born six or 7 minutes before I was.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah. So I got those two. Noah is going to start kindergarten in September. Riley's going to go to a Mother's Day out school at a church in a town that we live by. So that'll make things a little easier. But the biggest thing, honestly, has been my in-laws and my wife's family that we live around, because, Noah was born. I was already touring, but Noah was born, and she retired to become, full-time nanny to her grandchildren. So, my wife was able to keep her job, which absolutely helped us out, and my mother-in-law would, watch our kids, or watch Noah. Then Riley was born. Eventually Noah started school, but they're still there to watch him whenever I'm gone, and my wife needs to work or whatever else. So that's been a very, very big help.
That's huge, man. Kelly and I were just talking about this. We went on a date when I got home. I got home Sunday, and we went on a date Monday. We were talking about that, and because we've had all 4 of our parents pass now, and I'm like, man, we don't have anybody to help keep the kids when we need it. So, and it's kind of hairy with my older son now, because he's 15, so we can't really get a teenage young girl to come keep the kids, because it doesn't work to leave a 15-year-old at home with a 17-year-old girl. So anyway, whatever. I don't know. Right. you do the math. So that's great. And your wife, how's she doing with things, man?
Oh, she's good. She isn't necessarily looking forward to the month of August, since I'll be across the globe. But she's doing good. She's a trooper. She knows she was a fan of Cody before I even joined the band. Um, and she trusts the guys. I'm on the road with some really good guys. Everyone's family oriented, and no one does anything crazy on the road. No one does any really crazy drugs or is an alcoholic or anything like that. So she knows I'm in good hands out there, and I know she's got friends and family. She's from the area we live in, so she knows everyone around here. So it makes that, or it makes that easy. But she's been such a trooper over these last, I don't know, been together, I think 10 or 11 years. So,
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We got Grant, did you say we got another submitted question, man?
Yeah, we have a submitted question from Helen. And then also Sean's not in the call, but he asked all our guest artists the same question. So we should ask that one as well.
Okay, let's do it.
So we'll get the question from Helen, and I see Helen in the call. So feel free to unmute and jump in. Or if you'd like to ask it, you're more than welcome to do that as well.
I was right, by the way, before we do that, Miles Davis does have an album called Milestones. Anyway, back to
That's amazing.
You got to get the album now.
Yeah, I do.
What's up, Helen?
Hi, and hi, Miles. Thanks for doing this.
No problem.
Yeah, I just had a question. I'm interested to know how you work with the bass player in your band, and if you have any tips for someone like me who's a complete beginner and doesn't play in a band and sort of doesn't know how to approach really playing with a bass player. So if you've got any advice or tips, I'd be really grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. And thankfully I play country music. So because your bass drum and the bass guitar go hand in hand, and you'll notice listening to country music and things kind of like that, the kick drum and bass drum are going at the same time. Usually if there's a kick pattern, do, the bass player is going bum, bum, bum with them. And so if they're playing together that entire time, and that foundation's good, that song's going to have that really good rhythm section. And it's important that you're on the same page. If you start rehearsing with, your bands or that bass player and he's doing a pattern that's completely different, you got to be on the same page and lock in on that. Now, there's no problem with him going on tangents, or maybe you throwing in those extra kicks there and stuff. That's just to spice it up. That's okay. But having just that foundation and you two are on the same page as far as, okay, hey, remember if there's something special, like, hey, on this bridge, this last little phrase right here, remember that one kick pattern's changed, and then that's the only time it changes in the whole song. So they really go hand in hand together, and it's important to be on the same page with them for sure.
Right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, there's certain styles that it lends more to the bass, and the drums kind of lock up pretty heavily with everything they play. In country music, Southern rock those are two styles that very much, you're syncing up directly.
Yeah, and if you get into stuff like metal, there's some bands out there that will do that, but there's also a lot of bands. It's like the kick drum and guitars are really doing it, and then the bass guitar is actually just following what the guitars are doing. They're not really paying attention to the kick drum. So pay attention to that too. Make sure you know what's, you're aware of what style of music you're playing too.
Yeah. I've noticed whenever metal bands do it, it almost makes it heavier. It's almost like whenever the band, they shift into a higher gear when they all lock in, but they could be kind of dancing around each other the whole song. But when they all lock in for like a drop section or something, it's just like, wow, that's super heavy now.
Yeah, and I think that's one reason I love metal, and the type of metal I listen to does those a lot. Like if any of you have ever heard Periphery, that stuff is just way out of whack, but they still have those times when there's kick drum patterns and guitar and bass just doing these, almost sounds out of time stuff that just sounds so confusing to play. I don't even want to try it. But I think that's what's really cool about, metal and stuff like that, because the whole band can come together as like even more tighter unit at that point. And I think it's really cool.
Do you listen to Chris from Ocean's 8 Alaska?
Not much.
That guy is a freak, man.
I guess I need to check it out.
Yeah,
sure.
Go to his Instagram. He's got some stuff he said he learns all his parts on pads first, and the double bass parts he plays on a tile floor with shoes on, just his toes, before he'll ever go attempt it with the song to make sure it's clean. And he's playing stuff that is just insanely fast, and apparently they don't trigger. So anyway, he's pretty incredible.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to go research a little on that one.
Chris Turner is his name. Yeah. Thanks, Grant.
Okay.
All right. So we got a question that everybody that we have a member that's not here right now. He always asks. So Grant, I'm gonna let you ask him.
Yeah. So this is a question, like Steven said, he asked every guest artist we've had. So the question, and I'll probably mess it up a little bit, but I'm doing my best, Sean. All right. Is there any practice or exercise that you learned when you first started playing the drums that you still use and find valuable now where you are in your drumming journey?
I think the one thing that I've carried with me that didn't necessarily start when I started, but it's something I picked up in, junior high and high school band is paradiddles. For some reason, I love warming up with paradiddles. It's something that really, if I'm just not feeling the sync between my two hands, it's something that I sit and play over and over until I finally get them to sync up and work together and have everything working out perfectly. You have doubles in there, so it's a really good warm up. You can do double paradiddles, triple paradiddles, and make them a little more excessive and make that burn work a little bit more for you while warming up. But then, it's just a versatile thing you could use, and I've always just kind of stuck with those. I love working with paradiddles; they're fun.
I love putting paradiddles over sextuplets when I'm warming up because it kind of warms up the that brain part too with the polyrhythms. Pat is asking. He said, "You love to listen to old country music," which I guess is a good question. You love to listen to old country music. What do you consider old? What would that be? Give some artists maybe.
Well, so when I'm talking about that, I'm leaning more on, I guess you could say, like the Texas Outlaws, like the Merle Haggard, the Willie Nelson, okay, maybe not all Texas, but George Jones, and any music around that era. And then you can get into the Hank Williams Sr. back in those days. I don't listen to it a lot, but I do very much enjoy every once in a while just sitting and listening to some Hank Sr. or something like that.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, if anybody else has a question, you can go ahead and ask it. And Grant, is that all the submitted questions we got?
Yes, all submitted ones.
Awesome. Well, I got one last question. Unless we have more submitted questions, we'll stay as long as you all want. My question for you would be, Miles, we have a lot of members and students that are wanting to play out or are currently playing out or are working towards playing out with other musicians. Can you give maybe 2 or 3 things to either work on, pay attention to, ways that you feel help you get out and meet other musicians? Any advice in that that realm?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for one, practice and get good at your craft. You don't have to master it before you start doing these things, which is a great thing about music. But practice. And outside of just making yourself a better drummer or a better musician as a whole, when you get hired to either fill in or just play, or you're just in that band, if there's something new that y'all are going to learn for the next show, make sure you show up to your rehearsal or your show and know it. It's always the biggest letdown when there's a musician going, oh, well, I couldn't listen to it, and then you kind of have to sit back and make sure they learn it and stuff for 30 minutes instead of just showing up to the gig and running over it, ironing it out, and then being done. And that leads into my next thing is just being professional. Musicians have, I may not be around as much as it was, but I think there's been a lot of stereotypes on musicians about they're just lazy party animals and drug addicts, or whatever you want to call it. But I've always held myself to a professional stance where load-in times at 1:30, okay, I'm getting there at 12:30 kind of thing. And if the place isn't open, I'll hang around, whatever, but I'm going to get there early and I'm going to set up early. And there's been times I've beaten the entire band to a show and set up, and the sound guy was there, and she was like, hey, do you want to sound check your setup? I was like, yeah, let's go. And then I sound checked, and then the band decided to finally walk in. But it's actually just being a professional about what you're trying to do. You can't just use this as an outlet to go and just have fun and do certain things and stuff. It is a job, and you have to treat it that way. Knowing your stuff, and then, kind of going back to what I was saying, the way I describe it is playing with emotion. I want to connect with the audience. You're trying to put on a show as a band, but you also have yourself that you're trying to put on your own show too. And if you can just figure out a way to, or not figure out a way, but try to connect with those audience members, like when I say I play with emotion, I kind of want someone to look at me while I'm playing a song, no matter what it is or what it's talking about. And I want them to believe that I've actually experienced that. They can see the pain on your face, or they can see the happiness in your eyes, whatever it is. But I feel if you're reaching out and connecting with the crowd and playing with the band and meshing well with the band, and you're a good hand, putting on your own show and making the band show that much better, I think you can end up getting more calls and stuff like that, because it's just, to me, being a live drummer is more than just playing the beat solid. Of course, that's number one, but at least in my own stance, or in my own opinion, putting on a show is a thing. And I think it's helped me in my career, and I think it's helped the band in our shows and our live performance and things like that.
Yeah, I agree that's one of the things that with what I do with the Woods is I spend so much time working on the show aspect of it, not being over the top, but just kind of like you said, like we're playing a ballad. How am I supposed to connect with people on that? How am I supposed to translate to them that means as much to me as it does to the person that's singing it? How do we, those are, we talked about this with the last guest artist. Those are the intangibles in drumming that you can't really point to and say, well, here's an exercise to do that. And it's like, I don't know how to make you care about it. I don't know how to do that, but I know that it's different when a musician is up there and you can tell they're living that song as much as they can versus someone that's just kind of mailing it in and doing a gig. There is a difference in the delivery, but it's like, you can't, how do you tell someone how to work on that? It's like, I don't know, get some passion in your life. I don't know. You got to figure it out.
Yeah. And I've never really came up with a good method or anything, because I've been asked about it a lot, but I mean, it's just something I do. And to kind of go back, like, there's nothing wrong with watching a band that just doesn't move around stage and isn't energetic. That's that band's thing, and that's what they're good at. There's nothing wrong with that. Just in my own, what I want to do on stage, and luckily I play with, a group of guys who pretty much think the same thing. I want to portray that, and I want to be energetic and just be worn out after the show. So I just wanted to be sure that I threw that in there, like, oh, boring bands suck. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, and that's so whenever we'll kind of wrap up with this. When I started down in New Orleans, playing on Bourbon Street, there was a player down there named Raymond Weber. Raymond Weber played with Harry Connick Jr. on his funk albums. He played with Dave Matthews on his solo stuff. Kind of a local legend down there. And I remember hearing him talk to my drum teacher. Also had the gig opposite me, and I remember hearing him talk to him because we were playing cover songs, dance stuff like Brick House. And it's the best explanation I've ever heard of, like, this is an example of how you do that. And he said, when I'm playing Brick House, I'm not thinking, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. He's like, man, I'm thinking about this big, fine woman walking down the street. And I'm like, I'm like 19. I'm like, what? You're thinking about what? And then I started reading the lyrics, and I'm like, oh, so that's what this song's about. Oh, I see now. And he was trying to be like, you can't just think about the notes. What's this? Same thing. The first time I heard a girl really sing "Girl from Ipanema," that's a sexy song, but it's like, and it doesn't have to be sexual in nature. But he was trying to portray, like, we're trying to portray a vibe. We're not just trying to portray these notes that we have here. There's also something else we're trying to give people. This song is about this man appreciating larger women. And so that's what I'm thinking about, and Raymond's a huge guy, he's a big guy on the kit, and I always go back to that. I'm like, man, I need to be thinking about what is this song about, and can I put myself in that mindset and that frame of mind to be able to portray whatever that may be, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So very cool, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to everybody. I know that your days off are precious and few and far between. So I appreciate you taking a couple hours out, man.
Oh, no big deal at all. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure you and I will talk soon, man. We'll cross paths somewhere. But everybody, this will be recorded and put into the members area in the next couple of days. We'll have jump links for all the questions and everything as well. The guest artists we talked about on here, Dave King, Steve Gould, you can find all those in the guest artist sections. And then next month we have Dr. Azar, and that's going to be a lot of fun with her. So yeah, we will talk to everybody on, when's the next call, Grant? Hold
It's Monday. It's a Q&A at 3 p.m.
Awesome. So Monday we'll have a Q&A with everybody. And Miles, if you want to hang around, man, we'll wrap it up real quick. But everybody else, we will see you Monday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.